Hello and welcome to Easy Gluten Free. Today we're making homemade pasta the way it was meant to be with just two ingredients, flour and eggs. And can I tell you that's practically unheard of with a gluten-free pasta. Pasta is typically made with 100 grams of flour for every egg. But things got a little more complicated when I had to go gluten-free, and the ingredients list got a lot longer. So I wondered if a readily available flour blend like this Bob's Red Mill gluten-free 1-to-1 flour might be able to bring the simplicity back. I added 200 grams of the flour to a food processor, then tossed in 2 eggs and gave it a blitz. And I could tell right away that the dough, which looked like fine breadcrumbs at this point, was way too dry. And some people would add water here. But I find that although water makes a softer dough that might be easier to work with, it never really gives the al dente final result that I happen to love in my pasta. So to keep a stiff dough structure, I opted for another egg. And after running the food processor for about another 30 seconds, I had a dough that was almost right, but just a little too sticky. But that was okay because I knew I could work in an additional quarter cup or so of flour as I finished it by hand. Knead the dough on a floured work surface for 2 or 3 minutes, adding small bits of flour to bring it together and get the texture right. And you don't have to knead it very long since there's no gluten to develop here. And you don't want to add any salt to the dough since that would start to draw the humidity out of the air, which could start to give you a sticky dough. The pasta itself will actually get plenty of salinity as it boils for a few minutes in the heavily salted water later. And once you've worked in enough flour so that the dough is no longer sticky and feels pretty supple, wrap it in plastic and let it rest for a few minutes while you grab the pasta machine. Now you can cut the dough into 4 pieces, flatten down a section, and roll it through your widest roller setting. And on the first couple of passes, I like to fold the sheets of pasta onto themselves a few times to square up the edges. And when the dough looks like a pretty nice sheet, lower the roller down to the next thinnest setting. And I have 6 settings on this machine, but I never like to go below the 3rd or 4th setting because I don't like it too thin or it could get mushy or even start to fall apart when it's cooked. But every machine is different, so you're going to have to play it by ear on this. And usually after I hit the 3rd setting, I also like to cut the long sheet of pasta in half so it's a more manageable length. And when rolling the pasta, it's easiest to start rolling the sheet through the machine, then grab it gently with the hand that's not turning that crank, and once the whole pasta sheet passes through the cutter, lay it down onto a floured surface. And before I cut the pasta, I personally like to cut the ragged edges from the sheet and set them aside so the final pasta has a more finished look. And I'll show you what to do with the scraps in a second. And again, as you cut the pasta, start rolling the sheet through the machine, then grab it gently with the free hand, and slightly twist the bunch of tagliatelle onto a floured cutting board or baking sheet. And once all the sections are cut, I like to smash those scraps all together and roll them into 1/2-inch logs, then cut them into tiny pieces, use my knuckle to smash each piece against the palm of my hand to get a small artichoke shaped pasta. And I actually used these the next day in a fish stew that I made. Now to cook the pasta, bring your water up to a boil, add a nice amount of salt, drop in your bunches of pasta, but you've got to have your sauce ready since this is going to cook in less than 2 minutes. And I actually used the sauce and shredded meat from a few leftover short ribs I had made the day before. Maybe I'll do a short rib video sometime. Now add the cooked drained pasta to the sauce, toss it through, and it's ready to eat. I added some parsley and pecorino romano to mine, and you've got a fresh homemade pasta here that's sure to impress anyone. And with just 2 ingredients, I'd say we definitely brought simplicity back to this gluten-free recipe. And if you'd like to print a copy of today's recipe, you could always visit my blog at the link below. And for brand new recipes every week, don't forget to subscribe. See you again soon.